Mr. Jonathan was one of the wealthiest individuals in Nigeria, with numerous businesses and more money than most could even count. People referred to him as the silent billionaire because he preferred to remain low-key and not show off his wealth. One day, he acquired a large company called Silverstone Enterprises, a business renowned for its over 500 employees, impressive office spaces, and lucrative profits. Everyone assumed that Mr. Jonathan would just sit back in his mansion and collect the revenue from the business. But he had other plans. He had heard unsettling rumors, stories about employees embezzling funds, managers demanding favors in exchange for promotions, and lower-level staff being treated unfairly. These stories concerned him. How could I know who is loyal? He wondered. How can I tell who is honest and good-hearted? Then a thought struck him. I will go there myself, but not as the boss. I will go as a poor old man. I want to observe how they treat someone they believe has nothing. The following Monday morning, Mr. Jonathan arrived at the gates of Silverstone Enterprises, but this time, not in his usual luxury convoy. He wasn't dressed in a sharp suit, and he didn't have the usual respect that came with his position. Instead, he wore a loose patched-up shirt, baggy brown trousers with holes at the knees, and an old worn-out cap. His polished shoes had been replaced with dusty sandals. He carried a small black bag filled with old clothes, water, and a mop head sticking out. Even his posture had changed. The once strong, confident man now walked with a slight bend in his back, as if age had caught up with him. His voice, usually deep and commanding, was now frail and shaky. He looked like someone who had lived a difficult life. He joined the long line of job seekers outside the company gates. The sun beat down mercilessly, but Mr. Jonathan stood silently, unnoticed, in the heat. A few younger men looked at him with pity. "See this old man," one whispered. "At his age, he's still walking." Another one laughed. "Let him go home and rest. He's too old for this." Mr. Jonathan didn't react to their mockery. When it was his turn, he stepped forward to the security desk. "What do you want?" the grumpy security guard asked while chewing gum. "I'm looking for a job," Mr. Jonathan answered quietly. The guard looked him up and down and sneered. "With this dress, what kind of job do you think you'll get?" "I can clean," Mr. Jonathan replied. "I can sweep, mop, anything." The guard chuckled. "Old man, go home and rest. You're too old for this kind of work. You'll probably faint in the toilet." Mr. Jonathan stayed silent. Just then, a young female HR officer walked by and overheard the conversation. "Who is this?" she asked. "He says he's looking for work," the guard replied. The HR officer, irritated, said, "Follow me." Mr. Jonathan silently obeyed. She led him through the grand glass doors of Silverstone Enterprises. The interior of the building was pristine, gleaming floors, cold air conditioning, and luxurious furniture. Staff walked past in suits, holding tablets and coffee cups, barely noticing Mr. Jonathan's presence. The HR officer led him into a small office. "Do you have any experience, sir?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Mr. Jonathan replied. "I used to clean in another company, but it closed down years ago." She nodded. "All right, we need janitors. You will clean the first and second floors, the restrooms, break rooms, and corridors." She slid a piece of paper toward him. "Sign here." Mr. Jonathan took the pen and signed with shaky hands. She didn't smile or even look at him again. "Your uniform is at the back. Report to work at 6 a.m. every day. And listen, old man. Don't disturb anyone. Don't work too slowly. And don't speak unless spoken to." "Yes, ma'am," Mr. Jonathan replied, softly. And so, the billionaire became a janitor in his own company. The next morning, Mr. Jonathan arrived before the sun rose. He donned his blue uniform, which smelled of bleach and was already stained. He carried his mop, bucket, and brush, and began cleaning the floors. As staff members started arriving, he stepped aside to let them pass. Some of them stepped on his mop without offering an apology. Others dropped paper cups right in front of him and walked away without a word. "Old man, "Clean up this coffee," one of them shouted. "Janitor, take this parcel to the 3rd floor," another one ordered, tossing a heavy bag in his direction. No one thanked him or even acknowledged him by name. To them, he was just a janitor, an old man who had no importance. Sometimes, when he cleaned the restrooms, he overheard their conversations. "Why is he so slow? Doesn't he have grandchildren at home? I bet his children abandoned him," they laughed. Some even mocked him directly, but Mr. Jonathan didn't get upset. He just listened, took mental notes, and continued his work. He could see the pride, arrogance, and cruelty in many of the staff members. But he kept cleaning with the same dedication he used to put into billion-dollar deals because he had a mission: to find out the true character of the people at the company. One afternoon, while mopping near the front desk, he heard a soft voice. "Good afternoon, sir. Have you eaten today?" He looked up to see Ruth, the receptionist. She was dressed neatly in a white blouse and black skirt, her braided hair tied back, and her eyes were warm and gentle. Mr. Jonathan smiled. "No, my daughter, not yet." She opened her handbag and pulled out a small food pack. "Please, take this. I brought extra today." He was taken aback. "Thank you so much," he said softly. From that day, Ruth greeted him every morning with a smile. Sometimes she brought him food. Other times, she simply asked how he was. She treated him with kindness. When others mocked him near her desk, she stood up for him. "Stop that," she would say. "He's old enough to be your father. Show some respect." Mr. Jonathan watched her closely. Ruth wasn't just kind, she was also smart. She had graduated with first-class honors in business administration from the University of Lagos. Yet, she had been stuck in the receptionist role for 3 years. Why? Because she refused to sleep with her manager. Mr. Jonathan clenched his jaw but said nothing. "Let them keep mocking me," he thought. "Soon, the truth will speak for itself." So, while everyone saw him as just an old janitor, Mr. Jonathan was quietly gathering the truth, one stroke at a time. One rainy morning, the rain fell heavily, drumming loudly on the roof of Silverstone Enterprises, like a warning. Mr. Jonathan was mopping the lobby, water dripping from his sleeves, when he felt a gentle tap on his shoulder. "Sir, you're soaking wet." Ruth's voice was soft. He turned to see her holding out a small towel. He blinked in surprise. "You're giving this to me?" "Yes," she replied. "Please take it. You'll catch a cold." That small gesture touched something deep inside him. All morning, not a single person had even looked at him, let alone offered help. Yet Ruth, the receptionist, had treated him as a fellow human. "Thank you, my daughter," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. From that day on, Ruth became a bright spot in Mr. Jonathan's otherwise hard days. Whenever he passed by the front desk, she greeted him warmly. "Good morning, sir. Hope you slept well. Have you eaten today? Please sit and rest for a while. You've been working too hard." At first, Mr. Jonathan didn't know how to respond. It had been a long time since anyone had cared for him without expecting something in return. In his billionaire world, smiles were always given to gain favor, but Ruth's kindness felt pure and real. One afternoon, when most staff had gone to lunch, Ruth came to him quietly and handed him a small white bag. "I made rice and stew," she said. "I brought extra." Mr. Jonathan looked at the food, then at her. "Ruth, I have no money to pay you," he said. She laughed softly. "I didn't ask for money, sir. You remind me of my father. He passed away 2 years ago. He was kind like you." Mr. Jonathan's throat tightened. He nodded slowly, taking the food with both hands, feeling deeply grateful. In the hallways, whispers followed. But not everyone liked the attention Ruth showed the janitor. One day, a young man from the accounts department scoffed. "Ruth, why are you always talking to that dirty old man? Do you have no shame? Are you trying to be the good one?" She looked him squarely in the eye. "He's a person, just like you and me." He hissed and walked away, but Ruth didn't respond. She had grown used to their mockery. She understood how things worked in the company. People bowed to power and trampled those they saw as beneath them. But she didn't care. Her values, instilled in her by her mother and father, taught her to treat everyone with dignity. Mr. Jonathan overheard it all. Ruth has a heart of gold, he thought, yet they treat her like she's nothing. He decided to learn more about her. Late at night, when most of the employees had gone home, Mr. Jonathan used a master key he had obtained to sneak into the staff records room. There he found Ruth's credentials. Ruth Okeke, first-class graduate in business administration from the University of Lagos, with multiple awards and top performance reviews. Why then was she still stuck at the receptionist desk? The answer came one day when Mr. Jonathan overheard a conversation between Ruth and the company manager, Mr. Sylvester. "I've done everything the company has asked of me," Ruth said, her voice firm but trembling. "I work hard. I come in early. I stay late. I deserve a promotion." Mr. Sylvester's voice was cold. "I've told you what it takes." "I'm not sleeping with you," Ruth said. There was a pause, then a mocking laugh. "Keep sitting at that desk." Ruth walked out of the office, wiping tears from her eyes. Mr. Jonathan clenched his fists. He knew the truth. Ruth was being punished because she refused Mr. Sylvester's sexual advances. That evening, Mr. Jonathan went home, his heart heavy with rage, but he said nothing. Not yet. He knew he needed more evidence. The next day, at Silverstone Enterprises, everything would change. The following day, Mr. Jonathan stayed behind after hours, quietly pretending to clean the office kitchen. He had planted a small voice recorder in his mop bucket, positioned perfectly to capture any incriminating conversations. Around 6:45 p.m., Mr. Sylvester returned to the office with 2 senior staff members. They were unaware that Mr. Jonathan was still there. "Okay, how much did we move this week?" Mr. Sylvester asked, his voice low. 4 million naira, one of the men replied. "We'll use the old project code so no one notices." "Good," Mr. Sylvester responded. "Send it to the offshore account. I'll sign the final approval tomorrow." Mr. Jonathan froze in place. "They're stealing company funds right in front of me." He waited until they left, then quickly retrieved the recorder, his hands shaking with anger. "Now I have proof," he thought to himself. But this was only the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Jonathan uncovered even more corruption within the company. He discovered that some senior staff members were fabricating contracts with ghost companies, signing them, and moving large sums of money into accounts they secretly controlled. One day, while mopping the 3rd floor, he saw one of the staff members printing a fake invoice. Mr. Jonathan bent over, pretending to work, while his eyes caught the name of the fraudulent company on the document. Later that evening, he did some research and found that the company didn't even exist. No address, no contact number, nothing. A ghost company, he realized. They've been stealing from the company like termites eating away at wood. He took pictures, made copies of the documents, and saved everything in a secret folder. Mr. Jonathan continued his quiet surveillance, and with every passing day, the mistreatment of him worsened. Some of the staff began treating him as their personal servant. "Old man, go buy me some pure water. Janitor, take this file to the HR office, but don't touch my shoes." One staff member even kicked his mop bucket accidentally and shouted, "Why are you in my way, old man?" But Mr. Jonathan didn't retaliate. He smiled quietly, because he knew the truth would eventually come to light. One evening, Mr. Jonathan came to work and found Ruth sitting alone at the reception desk. Her eyes were red from crying. "My daughter, what happened?" he asked, walking up to her slowly. "They want to fire me," Ruth replied, her voice thick with emotion. Mr. Jonathan's eyes widened in shock. "Why?" She sniffled, lowering her head. "Someone accused me of misplacing company documents, but I swear I've never even seen the documents they're talking about." Mr. Jonathan sat next to her, his heart aching. "Who accused you?" "Mr. Sylvester," she said quietly. His hands clenched into fists. He already knew what was happening. Ruth was being targeted because she had refused Mr. Sylvester's advances. "Don't worry," Mr. Jonathan said gently. "God is watching." But even as he said it, He knew that it wasn't just God watching. He was watching too, and he had seen enough. That night, Mr. Jonathan went back to his mansion, standing in front of a large mirror. He looked at himself, dressed in his dirty janitor clothes, his face tired, eyes weary. But behind the fatigue, there was a spark of determination. He opened a secret compartment in his safe and pulled out a file, thick with evidence. Inside were voice recordings, printed emails, fake contracts, photographs, and a report from an accountant he had secretly hired to verify the thefts. He placed the file on the table and whispered to himself, "They think I'm a fool. They think I'm just a janitor. But soon, they will see who I really am." The time had come for him to act. The next morning, everything at Silverstone Enterprises appeared normal. The sun shone brightly, the building gleamed like glass, and the staff moved about with their usual smiles and gossip. But something was different this time. There was an unusual tension in the air. Ruth sat at the front desk, her face pale and her eyes swollen from crying all night. She had already packed her small bag, expecting to be fired. Upstairs, Mr. Sylvester was laughing on the phone. "Yes, we'll push her out today. She thought she was special, but she'll learn. This is the last day she'll sit in that office." At exactly 9 a.m., the building's loudspeakers came on. A voice none of the staff had ever heard before echoed through the halls. "All staff are to report to the conference hall immediately. This is a special emergency meeting. No excuses." Confused murmurs spread through the office. Who made that announcement? Some people wondered. We thought the CEO wasn't in town. Everyone, managers, staff, janitors, and secretaries, hurried down the hall to the conference room. As they filed in, there was complete silence. The large screen at the front of the room flickered to life, and a member of the company's board appeared, clearing his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the new owner of Silverstone Enterprises. He will address you now in person." The staff exchanged looks of confusion. "New owner? Isn't that supposed to be Mr. Felix?" "No, I heard the company was bought quietly by someone else." Suddenly, the doors to the conference hall swung open, and in walked Mr. Jonathan. But this time, he wasn't the janitor. No, today, he wore a sleek black suit, a gold wristwatch, dark sunglasses, and polished Italian shoes that echoed with each step he took. Behind him, security officers and personal assistants followed. It was the same man who had mopped their floors, the same man they had mocked, insulted, and ignored. He walked to the stage, removed his sunglasses, and scanned the room. Some gasped. Some stared with their mouths wide open. Mr. Sylvester nearly dropped his phone. Ruth's hand went to her mouth in shock. Then, with a calm voice, Mr. Jonathan addressed them. "Good morning, everyone. My name is Jonathan, and I'm the one who bought this company 6 months ago. But instead of making a grand entrance, I decided to come in quietly as a janitor. Why? Because I wanted to see the true heart of this company. I wanted to know how people behave when they think no one is watching." The room was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. "I wanted to see the reality of this place," he continued, "and what I found broke my heart." He raised his hand, and a projector flickered to life. Images of fake contracts, stolen phones, voice recordings, and illegal transactions appeared on the screen. He turned to Mr. Sylvester. "You," he said. "You stole over 37 million naira. You used ghost companies to move money? And you tried to fire an innocent woman just because she refused to sleep with you." Mr. Sylvester's legs wobbled. "Sir, it's not what it looks like." Mr. Jonathan slammed his hand on the table. "Don't lie." Security officers stepped forward, and Mr. Sylvester was immediately escorted out of the room. The crowd was stunned into silence. Some watched in shame, some even applauded. Mr. Jonathan addressed the staff again. "And he's not the only one. Several of you here have been diverting company funds, treating junior employees like slaves, and mocking those who are beneath you because you think you're better than them. But the truth is now out in the open." He looked around the room, his gaze intense. You all saw me every day, and none of you knew who I truly was, but you still treated me like dirt. That is who you truly are." The room was still as Mr. Jonathan's words sank in. He then turned to Ruth, who was standing at the back of the room, her hands trembling. "You," he said softly, "you are the only one who showed me kindness when I had nothing. You fed me when I couldn't pay for my own food. You stood up for me when others mocked me. You protected me like a daughter would protect her father." Ruth stood still, stunned, unable to speak. Mr. Jonathan smiled warmly at her. "You are the only one who has shown me respect," he said. "So, Ruth Okeke, I am giving you what you deserve." He walked down from the stage and handed her a letter. Her hands shook as she opened it. When she read the contents, her mouth fell open in disbelief. "You are now the new general manager of Silverstone Enterprises," Mr. Jonathan said. The room erupted in applause and whispers. Ruth was overwhelmed with emotion. "But, sir," she stammered, "I don't understand." "You earned it," Mr. Jonathan said. "Your hard work, your integrity, your values, this company needs someone like you. You will lead it with honor." Tears streamed down Ruth's face as she looked at him. She had spent so many years being ignored, mistreated, and belittled. Now, everything had changed. By the end of the day, 5 senior staff members were arrested. 2 were handed over to the police, while 3 others were suspended indefinitely. Mr. Jonathan announced that there would be a full audit of all the company's accounts. He also implemented new policies to ensure that workers would never face harassment, bullying, or injustice again. The office was no longer the same. As Mr. Jonathan walked through the halls, no longer as the silent janitor, but as the lion who had returned to his kingdom, people stepped aside to greet him, some bowing, some nervously avoiding eye contact. But he no longer smiled at them in the same way. He had seen their true faces. As he passed Ruth's new office, he stopped and smiled. "Thank you, my daughter," he said. Ruth stood up from her desk and bowed deeply. "You changed my life," she said softly. Mr. Jonathan's heart swelled with pride, knowing that in his quest to find loyalty, he had not only found the truth, but also the one person who had treated him with dignity when no one else did. And Silverstone Enterprises would never be the same again. This story reminds us that true power lies in integrity and kindness. It's not about what we have, but how we treat others that defines us. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's create a world where every person is valued, no matter their title.